Welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. This video is a direct continuation of part 1. So if you haven't seen it, please pause this video, go watch part 1 first, and then come back here, otherwise you'll be missing crucial context. In part 1, I gave Rick Sr. the benefit of the doubt. I suggested that the reason behind him not caring about Amelia forgiving the man that killed his son is simply because A, he just sees her as a manipulable, pliable victim like his son did. B, he has no respect for her agency, and C, he has no emotional investment in her forgiveness of Chris. And while all of that tracks, none of that explains the absence of contempt. Men like Rick Sr. don't forgive, they catalog. They file betrayal away, and they don't explode emotionally unless it serves them, meaning they don't confront unless it extracts value. Even if he never acts on it, it would absolutely reshape how he categorizes Amelia. His private judgment on her would harden, her internal value would lower, and it would feed into his broader worldview about loyalty and weakness. And that internal shift must exist, even if it never surfaces outwardly. I am not demanding that he brutally punishes her. I am asking for simple acknowledgments, such as a glance, a pause, perhaps a line delivered coldly. Anything that signals to Amelia, I see what you chose, and I will remember it. Why this matters is because the script explicitly wants Rick Jr.'s death to matter, but never doesn't matter in impactful ways. If even the father does not internally recoil at his son's mistress for giving his son's killer, and worse, becoming his son's killer's lover, then the story is signaling that this death doesn't matter that much. Now, I myself would prefer for a confrontation to eventually happen. Episode 8 was the perfect timing for a heated argument. But whether the tension explodes or not, it has to exist in the first place. But the psychological bookkeeping is non-existent. I also explained in part 1 that Rick Sr. sees his son as an improvement on him because Jr. manipulates people with slow ideological fracture, the kind that erodes one's worldview and reframes their morals over time. People don't realize they've been changed until it's too late, whereas Sr. relies on fast extraction manipulation, meaning high-pressure leverage, emotional spikes with grief, shame, fear, anger, maximum yield in minimum time, and discard once utility is exhausted. Because Rick Sr. discards people quickly, he cannot afford subtlety. He has to go straight for the most volatile emotional leverage possible. And in Amelia's case, that leverage is Rick Jr.'s death. But does he use it? Not really. Rick Sr.'s goal is to get Amelia to betray Chris. But here's the thing, you cannot get someone to betray a person they've forgiven without first destabilizing that forgiveness. Instead, he says,
At the end of the day, Smith killed your son because Waller ordered him to.
Yet me and Nicola, Daniel, and Ricky and Corda Maltese, we all defied Waller's orders when she went too far.
Yeah.
I'm not judging you. I'm sure you miss Ricky too.
That line affirms her moral framework. A manipulator never comforts the moral position they're trying to break. This creates a narrative vacuum. If Rick Sr. does not emotionally leverage his son's death, then why is he even here? He doesn't pursue vengeance, justice, or even an ideological conflict. All he does is...
That's why I'm here. I'm thinking there may be a way for you to get back into good graces of the U.S. government.
Anything.
You have to bring us Peacemaker.
Transactional blackmail. What he should have said should have circled back around to how he manipulated her at the funeral.
He loved you, you know.
Your son loved a lot of women, Rick.
Yeah, but he loved you as a friend, as well as whatever else. That is different. Really.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you know you'll always be family. Ricky would have wanted that. I look out for you best I can.
Not accusatory, just provocative. Do you think Ricky forgave him? You stand beside the man who killed someone you love. Waller might have ordered it, but Chris pulled the trigger. What would Ricky think of what you did? Does Chris truly love you, or does he see you as a murder trophy? Oh, especially that last one. Murder trophy is the perfect manipulator's probe. Why? It's about reframing Chris's love as conquest. He's not asking whether Chris loves Amelia. He's questioning what kind of object she is inside Chris's psychology. A murder trophy implies ownership through violence. A love that exists because of the kill, not despite it. Senior would be stripping Chris's affection of insincerity and turn Amelia from chosen into claimed. He would be reframing her relationship as the aftershock of Rick Jr.'s death. He could even destabilize her by guilt-tripping her over the affair. Something like, "Does Smith know about you and my son?" If she says no or hesitates, he'd attack with clarity. Then you're not forgiven, you're just hiding. You didn't just sleep with my son, you built a life on top of it, a life built on lies. In the kill shot, you stand beside the man who killed him without telling him who Ricky was to you and what secret you kept with him. Another thing he could utilize is affection, proximity. Those are the hands that killed my son. Do you ever think about that when he touches you? Do you still feel him when you're with Christopher? Or did you stop caring the moment it became inconvenient? He wouldn't be calling her immoral. What he'd be saying is, your body remembers the truth even if your mind lies. This tactic would force Amelia to choose between desire and loyalty. And why does he not do that? Because the narrative wishes to protect Amelia from being judged and Chris from being resented. That's by definition narrative cowardice. So what does Rick Sr. actually do with Amelia? He stages a fake assassination so Amelia stops it, which begs the question, why did he need Amelia specifically to stop it? Again, he doesn't even internally resent her for forgiving Peacemaker. He didn't do it to punish her, teach her a lesson, or gain leverage over her or Smith. The entire plan fails even under basic scrutiny.
To kill.
Because I knew Amelia would stop it. And now Smith thinks I'm messy and that I'm motivated by revenge. Maybe he won't notice Judo Master on his tail. Maybe he'll lead us exactly where we need to go.
Bro, you had him in custody already. What was he gonna do? Run? Refuse? Torture exists. Lie? Polygraph? Leverage? Surveillance? Also, I'm pretty certain that being nearly assassinated, arrested, beaten to a pulp, all by the father of the man he's killed, wouldn't make Peacemaker perceive Senior as sloppy. Quite the opposite. His reaction would be hypervigilance, paranoia, isolation, constant surveillance checks. Also, I'm wondering, why didn't he use Amelia's affair with Rick against Peacemaker here? Rick Jr. did not love Amelia. He used her, and Senior knows that. But here's the key. Senior would never reveal that truth to Chris, because truth would reduce leverage. What he wants is maximum psychological contamination. He wouldn't call her a whore to Christopher. No. He doesn't insult her directly. That would trigger Chris's instinct to defend her. He uses the angle of unreliability. He wants Smith to believe 3 specific things. That Amelia is capable of betrayal. Chris is not special, just next. If she could violate one woman, she can violate him. And none of that requires revealing the affair outright. It only requires poisoning trust. Senior doesn't say, "She cheated with my son." He says something more messy, morally ambiguous. Ricky had a habit of overlapping. He judged Amelia's character saying things like, "It's not about who she loved, it's about what she was willing to do," reframing her as someone who violates boundaries and rationalizes harm when it suits her. Someone who doesn't stop when another traumatized person is already bleeding. And that lands hard with Chris because he's trying desperately to believe he's with someone cleaner than he is. He lets the implication hang. If she could stand beside Ricky while another woman was breaking, what makes you think she will stand beside you while you're breaking? That line doesn't attack Amelia's love, but her capacity for loyalty. Peacemaker would then question his own self-worth. This is how Senior would destabilize Chris's trust, masculinity, and redemption all at once. And the most damning part, Chris can never confront Amelia about it without proving Rick Senior right. And that's psychological ownership. Back to the stupid fake assassination plot. If Rick Sr. were actually competent, none of this would be necessary. The moment the story requires overcomplication, emotional coincidence, character stupidity, it's admitting that it has no idea how to build meaningful tension and resolution. Rick Flag Sr. is the head of Argus, the biggest and most dangerous black ops, intelligence agency, and metahuman research facility in the whole of DCU. Peacemaker is just a guy who rarely carries a gun for most of Season 2. Senior by now would have been finished with him. But since the story is adamant on making Senior the bad guy and Chris and Amelia the victims, the story has to bend every form of logic to artificially induce and prolong conflict. Another issue is how the story implies that Senior has sexual interest in Harcourt. He demands he call her Rick at his own son's funeral.
In general.
Rick. Call me Rick.
And then again when he visits her 3 years later.
And yet you can't remember to call me Rick.
Sir.
Rick.
We then find him using the same tactic on Sasha Bordeaux, whom he develops a sexual relationship with.
Impressive, sir.
Rick.
But when Amelia finally calls him Rick first, he just brushes it off.
Exactly, General. Sorry, I mean Rick.
What?
You wanted me to call you Rick, not General.
Yeah, right.
What's it for?
A father sexually preying upon his late son's mistress is a deeply uncomfortable yet fascinating story. What makes it even creepier is the way that Ilana Rostovich is modeled after Jennifer Holland. But once again, the narrative refuses to own its own implications. It would rather play with the idea of darkness rather than engaging with it. I am not adding sexual subtext. The story already wrote it. The "call me Rick" detail is not neutral at all. It happens most notably at his son's funeral, during an emotionally vulnerable moment for Amelia. And that's not casual intimacy, that's forced familiarity under grief. We literally watch Senior enforce first-name intimacy, then escalate it into a sexual relationship with another woman under his command. Imagine if Senior expressed romantic sexual interest in both Harcourt and Bordeaux simultaneously. That's not shock for shock's sake, that's real institutional objectification of women. Sasha and Amelia eventually becoming friends would be even more powerful. Not because it's edgy, but because it's surreal. Sasha's relationship with Senior, as shown, was underutilized. We never see them truly clash or see how Senior uses affection against another woman beyond the surface level attraction. And for Emilia, her discomfort is narratively required, and the show refuses it. This isn't incest bait, it's about patriarchal inheritance. Senior isn't just replacing his son politically, he's threatening to replace him symbolically, and maybe even physically if the show dared to go that far. But as it stands, Senior doesn't resent Emilia for forgiving and being in love with Peacemaker. He doesn't punish her, doesn't confront her, doesn't attempt getting in bed with her. He doesn't stop her when she leaves at the finale. He doesn't care for her, he just leaves her for 3 years after the funeral despite promising that he'll take care of her. He doesn't need her. He doesn't mention June Moon, the Enchantress, either. There is nothing. Let's be very clear about what I just identified, because this is not taste, it's craft. Any serious writer would salivate over what I just laid out. It's a perfect convergence point of character psychology, moral contradiction, power dynamics, and intimacy versus violence, depicting manipulation across generations. And this is the kind of material that, let's say, Vince Gilligan would stretch across like 2 seasons. So the question becomes, why didn't Gunn touch it? Because this is not dark for darkness' sake. This is accountability writing. And Gunn does not write accountability, he writes emotional release valves. James Gunn only knows how to do one emotional move: pain, joke, forgiveness, team hug, needle drop. That's it. What I'm describing requires unresolved tension, silence, looks that don't get paid off immediately. Affection that feels wrong before it feels right, or never feels right at all. That would break his formula. And worse, it would break the fantasy of likability he protects at all costs. And since he does that, my question is, what's left? It doesn't help that Rick Sr.'s past is shrouded in mystery. He says he joined the military mainly to support his son, but we don't know what kept him in the military, especially after his son's death.
We all fucked up, Amelia. We could have been accountants.
Was it duty, a desire for atonement, depression? We don't know. What was his relationship with his son like? We don't know that for certain either. He doesn't even get to meet his son's Earth X counterpart, let alone get a flashback of him and his son. Kind of ridiculous when you consider that Peacemaker meets his father's and brother's Earth X counterparts. Creature Commandos. Should I even talk about it? While it's considered 100% canon, the characters' personalities are completely unrecognizable from their live-action appearances. Yet, I hated Rick Sr. even back then, as he was written downright pathetically. His little romantic tale with Ilana should have caused a palace-wide scandal, and more importantly, turned up Amanda Waller's rage to maximum.
Listen to me, I'm telling you, I've met this woman. This isn't her.
Bumping uglies with someone doesn't mean you're infallibly able to know a person's character, General.
I didn't.
Oh, now don't lie to me, Flag.
A U.S. ex-military officer sent to protect a foreign princess and heir to the throne, only to engage in sexual activity with said princess within her castle, is the sort of stuff that can start wars. Not that it ends up mattering, as Senior is conveniently fridged just like his son was, so someone quirkier can become the team leader of the Misfits.
You know who did it? Killed Ricky? They won't let me see the files.
You know I can't answer that, sir.
Argus is not a rogue cult or a secret cabal. It's explicitly framed as a government military intelligence agency. And Rick Sr. is a decorated, high-ranking officer. And in every internally consistent military narrative, next of kin are entitled to cause of death information. Not every classified detail, sure, but something like this. Now we have a father versus the state, loyalty versus authority, justice versus utility, and personal grief versus geopolitical calculus. And then Amelia Harcourt could tell Rick Sr. the truth behind Project Starfish. And Rick Sr.'s rage wouldn't just be personal, it would be ideological. You live because the state decided you're useful. Withholding the truth reduces tension. It doesn't build it. Real tension would be Rick Sr. knowing the truth, but being powerless. Peacemaker knowing Rick Sr. wants him dead, but is legally untouchable. Now, I could delve into the rest of Rick Flag Sr.'s character, but I don't want to. And the thing is, I don't need to. I have a confession. You see, I hate Rick Sr., yes, but not because he's corrupt, evil, and hateable. There's nothing inherently wrong, and instead everything right with a character like him. It's ripe for storytelling. I hate Rick Flag Sr. because he's miscast as himself. Richard Bill Flag Sr. isn't meant to be Machiavellian, sexually opportunistic, authoritarian, or genocidal. He's not meant to be Amanda Waller light and take on her salvation storyline. His character fails, not because he's unpleasant, cruel, or morally rotten. He fails because his narrative function doesn't match his archetype. His role overlaps with Amanda Waller instead of counterbalancing her, and he occupies ideological space that already exists, but weaker. Waller works because she's political and bureaucratic. Her cruelty is institutional, not intimate. She weaponizes systems, not relationships. But Rick Sr., as written, does the same thing, however with less authority, less narrative history, and less thematic weight. Instead of expanding the moral landscape, the story narrows it. His son, Junior, is meant to be the idealistic soldier, moral center, a Boy Scout with a spine who believes in rules even while bending them. And Senior should be the counterpoint. Gruff, old school, world-weary, has seen too much to romanticize anything, and crucially, he doesn't manipulate, he commands. He is the mentor that doesn't sugarcoat and tells hard truths. He is the father who believes in duty, not control. He is the general who doesn't scheme, he decides. His authority should come from experience, directness, and a sense of earned gravity and fatherly gravitas, not from whatever the hell is going on here. A gruff, old-school military man archetype can be harsh, flawed in communication, and emotionally stunted. But turning him into a power-hungry, scheming, petty politician doesn't make him complex. It makes him narratively useless and redundant. And at the end of the day, I'm left questioning, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Unfortunately, I don't have an answer. James Gunn has stated how he has always wanted a character like Senior in the DCU, a gruff military man, but then didn't write him as one. It seems to me as though what he meant by that is that he wanted the aesthetic of an old, world-weary, war-torn soldier, but not the psychology of one. Gunn often confuses dark with complex, but complexity isn't about stacking transgressions, it's about coherent motivation. Rick Sr.'s actions don't spiral from a worldview, they zigzag to serve plot needs. He's brutal but sloppy, strategic but nonsensical, emotionless but suddenly sentimental, manipulative but wastes leverage. He is functionally written as Amanda Waller, but without her ideological clarity, institutional brilliance, and terrifying consistency. Waller works because she believes in this system and is willing to become monstrous to uphold it. Senior believes in nothing except control, which makes him smaller, more useless. If the intent was to replace Waller as a power figure, the writing never redefines what kind of power he represents, and the Junior problem makes it all so much worse. The show wants Junior to be a morally superior man to his father, yet a more efficient manipulator, womanizer, a long-term psychological destabilizer, and a groomer-adjacent figure. So when Senior acknowledges his son as a cheater and a womanizer, while simultaneously praising him as being an improvement, it implies my son was a better tyrant than me. And once that implication exists, the entire moral structure collapses. And at that point, Senior can't function as a grieving father or even as a moral antagonist. He's not even a cautionary mirror, he just becomes a narrative accident. So, what actually went wrong? Likely conceptual incoherence. They had the idea of Rick Sr. but not the function, so the writing filled the gaps with vibes, not logic. And for a character who should represent legacy, military ethos, and moral inheritance, that's catastrophic. I'll see you in part 3, The Wasted Potential of Rick Flag Jr., coming soon.